Very much appreciate the fact that Anthony Pettis is joining us. Can't imagine how he's feeling and what he's felt and what he's been going through over the last few days. We found out on October 17th that his head coach for his entire MMA career, head coach over at Rufus Sport, head coach for his younger brother, Sergio Pettis, suddenly and tragically passed away. We're talking about Duke Roufus, of course, who we found out on Friday passed away at the very young age of 55. Anthony's kind enough to join us for a few minutes to talk about Duke, his legacy and memories with him by his side. Let us go to Anthony right here now. Hey, Anthony, how are you? Really appreciate you doing this.
What's up, brother?
Can I ask just how are you doing in the simplest form? How have the last few days been for you?
Not easy, man. I lost my first father at 16 years old, and Duke became my second father. And getting this tragic news, I was coming out to my house in Mexico, and I landed and I got all the text messages. Duke passed away. I'm like, no way, like this cannot be real. And yeah, man, it's all the emotions that I lived as a kid all over again.
As I mentioned yesterday, we just saw him with your brother in Dubai, an incredible moment, vintage Rufus Sport striking on display. Did you guys have any sort of indication, any sort of idea that he was battling anything, or is this just complete sudden as he was sleeping?
Complete sudden, man, out of nowhere. Our last conversation, I was getting ready for a fight in Dubai, December 20th, and I was going to Milwaukee after I left my house in Mexico to start training camp with Duke. And yeah, the news came, and it's complete sudden surprise that he passed away in his sleep.
Damn. And he wasn't dealing with anything. The word is heart attack.
We don't know. I mean,
Okay.
there still hasn't been an autopsy done yet. We haven't got the results back. I assume a heart attack just based on like the information I got from Scott Cushman, first person to find him. But yeah, we don't know exactly what the cause of death was.
Okay. How's your brother doing?
Same as me, man. Serge lost his father at 9 years old. I lost my father at 16. And then, we knew Duke longer than our real dad. He became a real father figure to me and a mentor, a coach, a brother. The way I lived my life was because of Duke. Like when I came to his gym, he told me a quote. And, my father's murder was always unsolved. And he said the best revenge is massive success. And I literally lived my life by that, and that's something he gave to me at 16 years old. And together we've done some amazing things, and we spent so much time together. I had 40 plus professional fights from Tuesday to Sunday, sleeping in a hotel room with him and just hearing his life story, my life story. And it's just one of those things, man. It's just really hard to get over.
Do you remember the first time you met him? How were you introduced to him? How did you end up at his gym?
Yeah, Rick Rufus. So his brother was, before UFC, ESPN had kickboxing on, and Rick Rufus was the man when it came to the ISK kickboxing, and Duke was always in his corner. When I was deciding to pursue mixed martial arts, Duke Roufus' gym was a no-brainer. He had the jiu-jitsu, he had the kickboxing, he had the traditional martial arts background that I came from. So, I signed up at his gym just as a regular student, walked in, met Duke, and me and him just we share the same philosophies in life. He didn't want to just be a guy that was in the UFC, a guy that was in the organization. He wanted to be the best of that organization. And man, like I said, that quote is how I live my life by. He gave me that quote at 16, and even still now at 38 years old, that's how I live my life.
He had a great kickboxing career, 36-8-1, 26 knockouts. Undefeated as a pro boxer, had 2 fights in boxing as well. But really, he'll be remembered for being one of the all-time great MMA coaches in that gym in Milwaukee, being one of the all-time great MMA gyms, developing champions like yourself, your brother, Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren, etc. If someone were to ask you what made him so great as a coach, why was he such a great coach, and why do so many fighters like yourself speak about him not just as a coach, but as a mentor, as a father figure? What made him so special, in your opinion?
I always tell my fighters there's 3 levels of coaches. A coach that studies the game and understands it from like just a philosophical sense of point. A coach that does what I just said, plus help somebody else do it. And then a coach level 3 is a guy that's helped somebody else do it, did it themselves, and they study the game. And Duke was a level 3 coach. It's very hard to find that in mixed martial arts.
I was looking at a clip from back in, I think it was in August of 2016. You beat Charles Oliveira in Vancouver, you were on a 3-fight losing streak. You obviously remember this. That was a huge win for you. And he came on my show the Monday after the win, and he said that it was hurting him so much to see you go through that tough time after being champion and whatnot, that if you would have lost that fight to Charles, which you won, he was going to retire from coaching, that he couldn't deal with it anymore. Did you know that? Did he ever tell you that? Did you know that he was taking this so personally? And to me, that just speaks to how much he cared, right? You don't often hear that from coaches willing to walk away. That's almost 10 years ago now. Look at all the success he's had since then. Did you know he took it so personally?
Yeah, we all knew. I mean, mixed martial arts is a roller coaster game, man. Highest highs, lowest lows. The Wheaties box behind you, man. Like we were just coming off the Wheaties box, and then we go into the Eddie Alvarez fight. Who else did I lose? Did I forget?
RDA and then Edson.
RDA, Edson Barboza. Yeah, those 3 fights, and yeah, we were the highest high. We just like did everything we could have done together, and then you coming into that is what the crazy thing is, I wouldn't change it. Now that I look back at it, I'm looking at all my old pictures with Duke, all the old memories we have, all the hotel rooms we had, the talks we had, before the fights, after the fights. It all happens for a reason, man. Everything is supposed to be exactly where it's at. I trust in God. I trust in his process for my life, and Duke played a huge role in that.
Do you have any memories of UFC 164? I remember being there. It was a celebration of you and him and the gym. That was when you fought Benson Henderson in Milwaukee, and it felt like you guys made it. Like, okay, the WEC title was something, but this was a UFC title fight in your hometown, and it felt like a celebration of Milwaukee in addition to a celebration of your family and his gym as well. When you think about that night and that win and that celebration, what comes to mind?
Man, honestly, just doing it in our hometown, training in my hometown, going to my dad's grave, being able to do that with Duke, seeing all of our friends and family. Yeah, man, that's one of the hardest. When I look back at those pictures, that hits me the most. Yeah,
no, I can completely understand. Can you tell us a little bit about his family? Does he have kids? Does he have?
He does. He has a daughter, Lulu Rufus. The crazy thing was the first time I was able to teach Duke something. So I had my daughter first, and
wow.
Duke had his daughter second. So I gave him just the how it was going to work, just the meaning of having a kid, the pressure it puts.
No, we may have lost him. He's joining us from Mexico, and he did tell me beforehand that there were some connectivity issues. So we're going to try to reconnect with Anthony. I don't want to keep him much longer because honestly, I'm really touched and impressed that he's here. But it's one thing for me to talk about Duke Roufus, who I obviously knew but didn't know on the, I knew him as a guest on the show and someone that you would see at events, cornering great fighters like Anthony and Ben Askren. Had the 2 fights with CM Punk, Sergio Pettis, Ben Rothwell, trained Rose Namajunas for a bit as well, Alan Belcher. I mean, really just a who's who. Tyron Woodley. Woodley developed into the striker that he was in large part due to the work that he did with Duke Roufus. It's just it's a tragic loss. It's an immeasurable loss. And like I said, 36-8-1 as a pro kickboxer, 26 knockouts. His brother, who Anthony referenced, Rick the Jet Rufus, had a 65-9-2 with 1 no contest record in the world of kickboxing. And it was really in 2006 that, Duke transitioned over to, starting up the team, starting up the gym, Rufus Sport. And, almost 20 years later, it's still one of the very best gyms and teams in the world. People come from all over the world to train at Rufus Sport. And that was actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask Anthony about what becomes of Rufus Sport now. Sergio obviously just had that big win. He's vying for that PFL title. One suspects that he might be fighting for the PFL belt next, the 135-pound belt. No one thought Tyron Woodley would turn into the striker that he became, knocking out Robbie Lawler, defending that title 4 times, defeating Darren Till in Dallas, which he said, as you can see right over here, the best fight of his career, because a lot of people counted him out at UFC 218. Paul Felder, of course. I have to mention Paul Felder. Paul Felder gave an incredible impromptu eulogy, if you want to call it that, on the broadcast on Saturday. Very well spoken, very heartfelt. You can tell how much pain he was in. Sitting next to, I believe it was Brendan Fitzgerald and DC. And he was another great fighter that came out of that gym. Bilal Muhammad, another great fighter that came out of that gym. And so, yeah, it's just it's an awful, awful, awful loss. And it feels like we've been having too many of these. If the Wi-Fi isn't working, maybe we could just get him on the phone just for a couple minutes. I don't want to keep him much longer, but I just want to be able to wrap this up in a proper way. Yep, appreciate it. So yeah, if we could just get him on the phone, that's totally fine. And honestly, was very surprised that he was okay to come on, and can't imagine, if you know anything about the Pettis brothers and what they've been through, losing their father at a very young age, and how that shaped them, to have someone like Duke and to see the bond, to see the friendship, to see the loyalty, to see the connection that they had was beautiful, was absolutely beautiful. Do we have Anthony for a couple minutes?
Yeah, I'm back.
Hey, Anthony. Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry about that. No, it's all good. I don't want to keep you much longer. I know how much is going on, and I really appreciate you being here. Can I ask, what do you think becomes, I know it's fresh, but what becomes of Rufus Sport now? Do you have any idea what will become of the gym, which is still very much one of the best?
Yeah, we have to keep a legacy going, man. Do for tomorrow, nothing else besides that. I had to come inside a bank because the Wi-Fi was messed up in the car.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's still fresh, but I'm going back to Milwaukee on Friday. I'll be there for a week or two, and we'll figure out how to keep this thing going.
How do you want people who maybe aren't as familiar with him, didn't know him on a personal level, how do you want people to remember your friend, your mentor, your head coach, Duke Roufus?
He was a great guy, man. One of the guys that, he competition was his life. He grew up competing his whole life, and knowing that he's gone now is, I got to keep his legacy alive.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate you coming on. I know this is a stressful time for you, and our heart breaks for you, and my condolences to you and everyone who knew him, his family, his friends. Really, really appreciate it, and so sorry to hear about this. Hang in there.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, there he is. Anthony Pettis, kind enough to join us, one of the greatest fighters of all time, former UFC lightweight champion, who was there in Milwaukee, UFC 164. Great, great scene when he defeated, of course, Benson Henderson. And of course, we will never forget the great scene when he pulled off one of the greatest moves in MMA history, WEC 53 back in 2010, jumping off the cage and nailing Benson in the final WEC title fight, in the final WEC fight, in the final round, and then the final minute. Like, you couldn't have scripted this. You couldn't have scripted this. And yes, shortly thereafter, I forgot it was right here. There's the Wheaties box. I mean, this guy was on a rocket ship, and in large part because of Duke Roufus being by his side. So just heartbreaking stuff, truly. And our condolences out to his family. Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.